5:04.
Stay out.
Careful over there. Don't hurt yourself. And before I do ask for introductions, I've had cataract surgery the last 2 weeks, so I can't even see that right now, and I'm supposed to be able to. So anyway, if I have a question about who's on board, or if there is a person asking a question, please tell me. And I will recognize it if I miss it. So let's start with the introduction of board members.
Laura Harthan, ACSD appointed member.
Steve Potts, Middlebury at-large.
Bill Biederman, Middlebury Whip.
Liz Sayre from MAUSD.
Vance Bishop, Middlebury at large. Austin Haynes from New Haven, business manager.
Kim Farner from New Haven, the community at large member from the Mount Abraham School District and chairperson.
Trevor Markowski, resident of Bridport and Whip member.
Christina Macklin, Addison Northwest School District representative from North Harrisburg.
Dan Rosendahl, Northwest Addison at large from Addison.
Jillian Ziegler, Director of Curriculum. Nicole McTavish, Superintendent and Director.
David Roberts, Director of Operations.
And online,
Iworzak, ACSD and Middlebury resident and board vice chair.
thank you. Chrissy?
Leslie, Workforce Development, Middlebury resident.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yep.
Yeah, Samantha Ruggles with Archer Smith.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
So I need a motion to approve the agenda.
I make that motion, but I also have an adjustment to the agenda, please.
Go ahead.
We realized that our next facilities meeting would be during our board retreat, so we'd like to move our facilities meeting a half an hour earlier to 3:30 on August 20th.
I'd like to propose a friendly amendment in the action items to move the audit up to number 1 instead of number 4.
A second?
Second.
Get that, Christine. And Christine's gonna be taking notes, so
That was gonna be
bear
my
with
question.
her.
Where's
She's
Linda?
doing great. We don't know. We don't know. But anyway, hopefully she's okay. That's all we're gonna say. Yeah. Which is
That's
more
how my
important.
show up.
Anyway, so.
It's not like Linda.
So, with that motion, does anybody need it repeated? I think we're okay. So there's 2 amendments to it. I think we're clear about what those are. All those in favor of that motion, please raise your hand or say aye.
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 Anybody disagree with that motion? Seeing none, motion carries. Motion to approve May 21st meeting minutes.
So
Seconded.
And second by Dan, thank you. All those in favor, please raise your hand or say aye.
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 Anybody disapprove? Seeing none, motion carries. Thank you. Any public comments about the agenda? Moving on, consent agenda, monthly accounts payable.
Yep, that's mine. So this is a quick recap of the month of May 2026. So in the general fund, we had $155,879.90 in accounts payable. Our payroll exposure was $238,433.22. In adult education, we spent $1,478.06. In the makery, just $91.68. Our enterprise revolving accounts, $8,675.04. Student activities, $5,633.10. There was no activity in the scholarship fund, and our building and equipment reserve fund, we spent $2,950. Grand total was $413,141 even.
Any questions for us? Okay, we need to vote on that. So it's a consent agenda.
I move that we accept that.
Thank you.
Second.
Seconded.
We have a couple. Steve, you can pick.
Who seconded?
Laura, Bill. Okay. All those in favor, please raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Okay, so we have personnel items that I believe there was a, some information on over here. I've signed this person's contract.
No caller. So we have hired a new culinary arts instructor. We're very excited about Zach Blanchett. Zach comes to us from Job Corps, where you might remember we also, Chuck also came, our auto instructor, and also our welding instructor, Dylan Bose. Zach is joining that group and is very excited to take on culinary arts here. He will be teaching, remember it's a half-time position for the first year. We're hoping that it grows to a full-time position. We're very much hoping that Zach is able to do that. And, but we did want to fill out his schedule, so Zach will also be a teaching assistant the second half of the day. So he'll be instructing the first half of the day and working as a teaching assistant the second half of the day.
Any questions?
Usually we would have Zach here, but he actually is working about 60 hours a week at Job Corps duties right now, and just, he's full up until he joins us in August.
What? Is he gonna assist, teaching assistant where?
Nothing is set in stone until the whites, we see the whites of the students' eyes in the fall.
Okay.
But right now, he is tentatively assigned to help Aaron in natural resources.
Oh, really? Okay. Excellent.
But that can all change. The other action that we have is Jess Danielle. Jess has been doing a spectacular job with work-based learning. We are incredibly pleased with her work over the time she's been here with us. She has made steady and significant improvement in the number and quality of workplace learning placements that our students have had. We had the opportunity as part of the CTE consortium across the state of Vermont, so all CTE centers, we went in together and wrote a grant, a congressionally directed spending grant to Senator Sanders, because he has a keen interest in work-based learning. And the group was successful with that grant. So we have the funds to fleet Jess up from her current 0.55 to a full-time position for next school year. She does know that that's grant dependent, and so it's a 1-year deal unless we can find a way to fund it past the 1 year, but we at least have her for full-time for next year, which we're thrilled about and she's thrilled about. And no cost to the district for that extra 0.45.
And we welcome Linda. We were this close to calling the police to look at
Tractor trailer truck going 25.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
I
you
got
thought
that.
maybe your road got washed out or something.
No, there's a lot of trees down on the
Yeah.
way from Newport, but
Yeah.
nothing in the road.
I didn't even see you, Linda. Thank God you're here. I'll hand over this stuff later.
But type it pretty fast. Thank you, Linda.
Sure.
All righty, so we need a motion to accept those two applicants.
So
Thank you. Second?
Third.
Bill? All those in favor, please raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Did you have a question, Steve?
No, I was just raising my hand.
Thank you.
Vote aye.
Gotcha. One question about Jess. How many work-based positions has she put together for staff, students?
She's going to be doing a report for the board in
Okay,
August,
good.
so you'll have a full.
You'll also see it broken down by program during my presentation.
Okay, good, thank you. Thank
No
you.
spoilers.
Too late. Too late. Thank you. Okay, under action items, we're going to move number 4, which is the audit report, and we have somebody here who's just dying to talk to us about it, I'm sure.
Yeah, sorry about it.
Welcome.
Thank you. Am I good to go?
You got it.
All right.
Do you want me to share? Do you want to share?
So, yes, I will. I do have a slideshow that I'm going to go through with you as quickly as I can. But just to give you a brief introduction, my name is Samantha Ruggles. I'm one of the Vermont-based audit managers with RHR Smith. I'm actually located right across the state in St. Johnsbury. So I'm sure that I probably got the weather that you all just had. So Alright,
Any tornadoes?
no,
If your hair stands on end, we'll know.
right,
you.
exactly.
Okay.
I just,
Alright, so
I just made you co-host. And let's see, probably need to go.
Alright, everyone see my screen?
Yes. Maybe.
Amazing. Alright, so, like I said, I will take you through this as quickly as humanly possible. I talk about this all the time, but I understand that for some people their eyes might glaze over, so if you have any questions for me during this, please feel free to interrupt me, or we can leave me in, whatever you prefer. So, this is talking about, as you're about to end your fiscal year 26 school year, I'm going to talk about your fiscal year 25 school year. So, just to give you guys kind of an overview of what your responsibilities are as the client, and then what my team's responsibilities are as your auditors. The school's responsibility, or the school district's responsibility, is to design and implement internal controls. They are to comply with all applicable laws and regulations as it pertains to GASB, which is the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, and GAAP, which is Generally Accepted Accounting Principles. They are required to give us all supporting documentation that we request, provide any supplementary information that we request, and create and utilize various accounting-related policies that we review and go through. What my team and what our HR's responsibilities are is to audit those things. Our responsibility is to gain an understanding of your internal controls, so we have to understand how paper moves through the business office, and how money gets out the door, how money comes in the door, and all of that. We do some level of testing. Right now we're in the process of kind of changing that. So our testing has decreased a little bit, but it's still there. And then we are required to make an opinion, or give you our opinion on your financial statements. So our audit opinion, what we tell you at the end of the year, is not based on how money and paper moves through your office. It is based on how we feel your numbers at the end of the year are stated, and if we feel as though they're stated fairly. We do provide recommendations on whether your internal controls or any other areas that we feel need improvement, which we will talk about at the end of the slideshow. And then we also provide any sort of audit adjusting entries that we feel need to be made, and we discuss with David and Austin to make those to your books in order to prepare your financial statements. So your school district received an unmodified opinion, which is the highest opinion that we can give. It basically means that we feel like your financial statements are fairly stated and are free of material misstatements. So there's nothing in there that we feel is big enough to raise any red flags, or to alter our opinion in any way. So I'm going to go through your general fund and then your enterprise fund or your vocational fund. But this is your general fund, and this is a 3-year comparison. So furthest on the left, you will see your cash balance from 23, 24 to 25. You will see that there was a significant decrease from 23 to 25. Various things, cost of everything nowadays is more expensive. The biggest thing is that in 2023, the district entered into a bond, which carries about $600,000 between principal and interest of payment every single year, which affects your subsequent year's cash. Your total overall assets and liabilities decreased from 23, 24, into 25. A lot of that has to do with the immense amount of cleanup that Austin and David have done since they've entered that office. And that ultimately will affect your overall fund balance, which we'll talk about in this next slide. So this is just a snapshot of your general fund balance and kind of where it's parceled out. So the school has, or the district has obligated $128,000 of general fund balance to use against this 26 budget, which means that about 50% of your fund balance right now is tied up and is set aside for other purposes. That means that the other 50%, so the other $128,000, is unassigned, and it's available for future needs, future resources, anything like that. You guys had no non-spendable, restricted, or assigned fund balances, which we'll talk about in just a second. This is a 3-year comparison of that same fund balance. So you'll see that your committed and your unassigned fluctuate. The way that committed and unassigned fund balances are determined is basically on the authority that that categorizes them. So committed is the highest level of authority, which is voters. Assigned is anything that the board chooses to assign or commit to another purpose. And then your unassigned. You also have some non-spendable fund balance that did not occur in FY25, but just to give you guys a little bit of, hit the lesson is non-spendable fund balance is anything that cannot be converted into cash. So, for example, if you see a prepaid expense, which is an expense that was paid in a current fiscal year, but was budgeted for in the next fiscal year, that's what we would consider a prepaid expense. That can't, if the cash is already gone, it can't be converted into cash, so we consider it a non-spendable. Physical inventory, so if you have food service inventory or anything like that, that's also considered non-spendable because it cannot be converted into cash. So this is a look at your revenues over the last 3 years. Intergovernmental revenues, steady increase. We've seen it across the entire state, and it's not uncommon with the rise in education-related support, tuition, all that kind of stuff. Everything is more expensive these days. Your tuition increased significantly. I believe you guys did some tuition rate increases over the past couple of years, which contributed to that. Interest income rose sharply. Those high interest rates are really benefiting bank accounts right now. And then your miscellaneous revenues dropped significantly, primarily because I feel that with David and Austin now having a handle on what's coming into the office, there is less likelihood of not knowing what the revenue is for and just throwing it into miscellaneous revenue. They are able to identify what the revenue is for, categorize it, and post it accordingly, and so that's why you're seeing that dip in your miscellaneous revenues.
Samantha, can I interrupt you quickly on the tuition side?
Yeah, absolutely.
Can you go back to page 7, the previous? So for the tuition, are you looking at our total tuition or the net tuition that we're invoicing districts?
This is just tuition revenue that you've taken in,
inclusive of the AOE subsidies.
Yes, I believe. Yes, I didn't put the graphs together, but I believe so.
Okay.
Yeah, what are the numbers on the y-axis? Is there a y-axis?
Well, one aside, I don't want to get you too off track, so apologies for interrupting, but the drop in the base rate really impacted our 25 tuition rate relative to prior fiscal years, which I'm assuming would factor into why you would see a bigger jump in that tuition rate.
Yeah.
Aside from other factors that go into how that tuition rate is assessed.
Samantha,
Yes.
That's just all monies gathered from tuition in that year, correct?
In that year, correct.
Okay, because the other thing which would affect that, right, is we have 40 more students, 40 more FTE,
Absolutely.
right, than
Absolutely.
we had before.
Yep. For sure.
Great, thanks, Samantha.
No problem. So this is looking at your revenue budget compared to what you actually brought in. So your state-based education payments, right on the nail. That's not something that we really expect to see variances in. Your intergovernmental revenues, which again is any other state payments, state aid that's not the state-based education. Tuition, you came in $3 under what you budgeted for. Interest income came in over. And then miscellaneous, again, like we talked about, came in under. But again, because of that cleanup, there's a little bit more visibility on where those revenues should have been posted. So this is your expenses. So across all of your categories, for the most part, there was an increase or a very, very steady straight line. Again, not uncommon. It's very common for schools to have an increase in expenses year over year, basically for the nature of you have salaries to upkeep, you have benefits that are always increasing, any other personnel-related expenses, you have to upkeep your buildings, you have fiscal services, which relates to salary and benefits, and all of that kind of stuff. The on-behalf payment, which is this right here, this second column in from the right, is not dictated by the school district, it's dictated by the state and applies to teacher retirement. The way that I explain this is it's never money that you will see go into your bank account. It is only ever revenue that you will see posted, and then you will see a counter expense for the same amount. So the state requires that process as an on-behalf payment for the retirement. But again, that is not something that's dictated by the school district. It's solely dictated by the state and their rates. And then your debt service, you'll see from 23, you were at $348,000. In 24 and 25, you were at $796,000. Again, that bond that you guys issued was about $600,000 of principal and interest. There are probably also interest payments in here from any other, if you have any other leases, if you take out TAN, interest is going to be applied to that as well. And then your budget actual for your expenses. So overall, you guys came in under what you budgeted for, primarily in direct services, but that counteracts from support services, so you could have been moving people around, moving staffing around and all that. Everything else is pretty consistent. And then the transfers to other funds were decisions that were made to compensate and to support funds like the adult education and the Make-Ready Fund as well. And forgive me, I don't remember the exact reason for those transfers, but I know that's what they were for. So now, we're talking about your business type activity. So, for anyone that doesn't know, and if I sound like a broken record, a business type activity or an enterprise fund is a fund that we consider to be self-sustainable, so it runs like a business. The reporting on your financial statements is different, and how we report things on your financial statement and how you should report things on your books is different depending on what you have. But so your total assets dipped in 23, came back up in 25. This, I think, and Austin or David can vouch for this. I really think this is just based on program enrollment. I think you have a lot of programs in here, so I think a lot of it is based on program enrollment.
Yeah, Samantha, I would add to that, the way we refer to it on our end, historically it was called the revolving account, and we've sort of coined it recently as the enterprise account. So most of our programs will have offshoots. Auto is the best example, where they're teaching students how to do tire changes, and then we engage the public to do an oil change and tire change, and we actually bill them for that, and the students and the enterprise group will generate revenue. So it can really fluctuate depending on how active each program is. If there's turnover in the programs, new instructors may not be as active as older instructors. So there are a lot of factors that go into the fluctuation.
That go into this?
Yeah.
Yeah. This is your revenues. So your charges for services went down in 25. Again, kind of like what I was saying, it's really just dependent on how active those programs are. And your expenses, the input and output of expenses and revenues is fairly similar. We don't really expect there to be more of one than there is of the other. If there was, we'd kind of be a little bit concerned as to why. But nothing really stuck out to us here. So now is where I talk about any recommendations that we have. And the first recommendation is to establish a fund balance policy. So this is something that we are getting a little bit more pushy with clients on, is to establish and maintain a fund balance policy. So basically have a policy in place that lets you know where you ideally want your general fund balance to sit at the end of the year. In a perfect world, it would be 90 days of operations for your next year's budget. So take your next year's budget, divide it by 365, multiply it by 90, and that is ideally where you would want your general fund balance to sit at the end of the year. That's just an example. You can make your fund balance policy be whatever you want. I know that VLTC has some really good models, but that is one of the things that we are really pushing for people to do this year. And then the other thing was the revenue budget, which I talked to David and Austin about. So we really recommend that both your expense budget and your revenue budget are posted in your financial software. That way, when reports are given to you as the board, or reports are given to the public, or whatever, it gives you a very accurate picture of what you budgeted for revenue and what you actually are bringing in that year. So those are our only two recommendations. Everything else looks wonderful. David and Austin have done I'm going to stop sharing my screen here. A tremendous job from where we were 2 years ago, was it?
It's only been a year and a
Hey,
little bit.
Samantha, just, I just want to make sure, so our budget next year is 6.2 million.
Yep.
And basically a fourth of that would be 1.5 million. So that would be the fund balance you're recommending. That's all.
That's ideal. That's in a complete ideal world. Like I said, that's just an example. We like to see 30, 60 to 90 days of your next year's budget.
Okay.
90 days is like optimal.
Yeah. Which is, for you guys, is about $1.5 million.
Samantha, do you have, for a school our size, and maybe we're sort of unique in being independent tech, but do you see, for other schools that have a $6 million budget, maybe there's a wide spectrum, but what is typical or average for other schools of our size throughout the state?
You know, I don't know that I can give you like an honest answer on that, just because, you know, I don't know that I can think of a school off the top of my head other than you guys that has a $6 million budget at this point in time. But we also have to figure in SUs, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
The closest one I can think of,
like River Valley Tech, maybe that, not to call them out, but
yeah, no, and that's the other thing is we don't do a ton of tech centers. We do like one or two other ones in the state. So to compare you guys to a normal school district is a little different.
Yeah.
I don't know where River Valley Tech Center is sitting right now. I did not do their audit. Another one of my colleagues did that, so I'm not entirely sure on that information. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's all public knowledge, so you can kind of do your research and figure out where other schools of your size are lying right now.
Yeah. That's fair. Thanks.
Any questions?
Well, I think I just want to say as an aside, it's worth acknowledging Samantha's been incredibly supportive of the whole process. It's been a pretty big journey to get us from where we started to here, and obviously there's an entire team behind that, not just Samantha, but we've kicked off our next audit already, FY26. Next week you'll have more financials from us for our current fiscal year, and we're looking forward to continuing. So just wanted to say thank you for getting us across the finish line. It's been a
Absolutely.
long story.
Yeah, it's been a journey, but I'm glad we got there.
And I know we've talked about it a number of times throughout this year, the incredible task that Austin and David faced when they came on board in a very short timeline. Oh, not that much than a year ago. It was like, I don't know, 14, 18 months ago that they came on board. And the board is aware of where we were when we brought Austin and David on board to solve this. They have worked tirelessly with great humor doggedly and professionally through this whole thing. And I just want to publicly acknowledge that the district owes them a huge debt and gratitude for all they've done to bring us into what I would call a professional business environment. So thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
I have a quick question. So, the state that they actually have had this in the last year versus prior years, does it make a big difference financially for us in the audit process?
Does it make a big difference financially for you guys in the audit process? So are you, I guess, yes, no. I guess are you asking like?
It's a better use of money, but it's a better use of your time and you guys are able to do it more efficiently?
Oh yeah, this is, where you guys are now is way better, is worth my time.
Okay. Does it save us money? Or are you guys still just as expensive?
I mean, I
They're
would
more
love to
expensive.
say yes, but no. Unfortunately, the downside is that auditing. So if anyone wants to become an auditor, auditing is fast and loose profession. There are not many auditors out there, so we cover about 75% of the state of Vermont just for schools. Probably about 50% of Vermont for towns. And then there's the whole state of Maine that you gotta think about too. So, yeah, no, it doesn't necessarily save you money. I wish that I could give you a discount for being a great client, but unfortunately, my name's
Just figured I'd try.
I know.
Thank you.
Know.
We've tried, they don't budge on that.
Yeah, I wish I could, but if I did that, we'd go broke.
Well, I'm glad to hear it's completely different from this year.
Absolutely.
Versus the past. Thank you.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Thanks for your efforts. I need a motion to accept the audit. Excuse me.
I will ask a question and make the motion.
Thank you.
Who did you say had a good model policy? I didn't quite catch the abbreviation.
I don't have one off the top of my head from another client, but I know that VLTC has some really great models for fund balance policies.
What does VLT stand for? VLTC stand for?
Vermont League of Cities and Towns. But you can also go to your lawyers or VASBO or anyone like that that would also be able to point you in the direction of a good fund balance policy.
Thank you.
And then I make a motion to approve.
Second?
Can I ask one question? Is that policy taken up by the finance committee or the policy committee?
It's on the docket for the policy committee.
Okay.
That it might be an inter-committee
Right.
conversation.
Okay. Just wondering.
So I'm a member of VLCT. What would the name of it be?
It would be a fund balance.
Fund balance
Fund
policy.
Fund balance.
Fund balance policy, okay. I can see what they have. I talk to the lawyers all the time. All right.
So we have a motion on the floor. It's been seconded. All those in favor, raise your hand or say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Samantha.
Thank you so much. Have a great night.
Thank you.
I'll try it, Austin.
Me too.
Ann's report for financial planning and budgeting.
It's me again. So this policy dovetails, it's a quarterly policy we look at once a quarter. The other one that is the flip side of the coin is policy 2.3, which gets a bit more technical. But this is more in broad strokes. It talks about big picture, how, sort of what Samantha was just talking about, how we function in the business office, and from a leadership perspective, we use internal controls over revenues and expenditures. It talks about how we monitor capital and operating expenses, and we use different chart of account structures to do that. With our purchase orders, our purchasing, we have a purchase order process that has controls baked in. We look at cash flow and monitoring cash and using our line of credit when we're sort of starved this time of year. And then it talks about at the very end that we don't have any programs or unapproved expenditures within the fiscal year. So that's, there's a bit more detail, but that is the best summary I could provide of that policy.
Questions? Seeing none, I need a motion to accept the Ann's report 2.4 financial planning budget.
So moved.
Second, Laura, thank you. All those in favor, please raise your hand or say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Thank you. Eds report 1.0.
This is mine. Hi, everybody. There's a report that is sort of a memo covering this topic and then the presentation itself. So if we take a look at the ends report memo itself, I won't read word for word here, but essentially this is a certification that we are providing both our secondary and our adult students with education and skills necessary to succeed in careers. The first portion of it asserts that they gain competency in math, writing, reading, and science. And to support this, I included statistics from our standardized testing. That's the ACT work keys tests that are administered to all technical program students. You can see that for both the workplace documents, which is English language arts, and for the applied math, we exceeded the negotiated target rate. So for all of these metrics that show each tech center's quality, the Agency of Education negotiates with the school administration for a reasonable increased performance target, and so we exceeded those targets. For this year, we are also held accountable for our students' science performance. This is a little odd because we don't administer this test ourselves. It's the VT cap, which students take in 11th grade at their sending schools, so we don't have as much control over that. However, we did exceed that target rate as well. Any questions on number 1? The second point is about competency in technical skills. This is the one where the subsequent presentation will get a little bit more into the weeds, but some overall statistics are included there, including our high graduation rate, the number of students who received credentials in their programs, as well as college credit in dual enrollment, real jump in workplace learning participation, in light of the number of concentrators or students who have completed a full year of the technical program. And as you'll see in the subsequent presentation, we exceeded all of our negotiated targets in all of these areas. Number 3 speaks to our imbuing our students with competency in social and emotional learning. And the best sort of metric of this is our habits of work. That is a grading area where instructors assess our students on non-academic elements like their stick-to-itiveness, their punctuality, their workplace readiness, using our 4-point scale. We had teachers average final habits of work scores, and our average for across the programs is 3.7, so we can see that our teachers are doing a great job of instilling workplace readiness as well as academic readiness. And the final...
Sorry, 3.7, is that out of 5?
Out of 4.
Out of 4, okay.
Yes.
That's different than out of 5.
And then numbers 4 and 5, Roger, our adult ed coordinator, wrote these, and these attest to our meeting targets in our adult ed students as well. So number 4 talks about all of the offerings that we provided to our adult ed students this year, with a big emphasis on our medical offerings. And the last paragraph there talks about the extensive opportunities on Ed2Go, which is the e-learning platform that go beyond what we can offer in-house. And then number 5 supports that metric for adult learners through our our ability to provide financial support to adult learners, particularly via VSAC, to make it possible for all adults to access our programs. So that's the overall memo. Any questions here before we move to the presentation that breaks it down a little bit more program by program?
Go ahead. science, I'm a scientist, so I'm
Yes.
looking at the science, the negotiated science target.
It's low, isn't it?
18%, because they wanted 18% pass in science, and we got 30. I mean, that's good, but
When you look at it across the state, it's quite low, the negotiated target, and we're able to see what the negotiated targets
Really?
are at least the met targets for the other schools, and it's low across the board. I'm not sure exactly why that is. It may be out of a acknowledgement or respect for the fact that the CTE centers don't administer the test and
no,
don't
I
have the
appreciate
same
that. I
access
just
to
look
the
at that
test.
number, yeah.
And I mean, even to that point, you know, though we have met and exceeded the math and the reading, there's still room for improvement. I mean, certainly we want to be higher than 50 some odd %, and the goal every year is to improve that. We took a more targeted approach this year, sort of an experiment, if you will, where we worked with teachers to incorporate some sort of work keys like bell ringer, as they're called in EduSpeak, a sort of lesson opener, a starter. So not exactly in a test prep way, but in a, if you are, let's say in construction and you are going to be framing that day, can you have a work keys like lesson opener that talks about the type of framing you're going to do? Or if you're in human services, rather than separating language arts prep, if you are, you know, working on lesson plans for preschool, could we make a work keys like opener that deals with the same content? And we did see significant, so there's an October administration of the test and an April administration of the test, and if it were just based on October, at that point in the year, our teachers haven't had much time with the students, right? If it were just based on the October administration, we would not have exceeded the targets, but by the end of the year, the retesting we had, so we did see some improvement from that targeted instruction. We have a long way to go. As you know, we have a high number of students in special education, and those are the students for whom we have the lowest pass rate on these standardized tests. And so we need to continue to do more to try to help that population achieve. So yes, there's room for growth across all three.
Okay.
Jillian, how do those numbers compare to, say, last year?
They show a slight, maybe 2% improvement from last year.
Thank you.
So the other link to the presentation, David, if you want to click the second link on item 2 there. That's it, yeah. The format would look familiar. I presented this information last August this year. I got it together faster so I could present it to you in June, right at the end of the school year. Kind of breaks down our metrics program by program.
I just need to share this with the folks involved.
I made a few minor tweaks today, so if you notice a couple of differences between the printed version, if you have one, and the live Google presentation, that's why.
Okay, continue on.
Next slide, please, David. So this introductory slide has a graphic of our center-wide achievement and some definitions of the categories that I pulled out for each program, which are earning at least one Tier 1 IRC, earning at least one Tier 2 IRC, earning college credit, and participation in work-based learning. So first, note the definition of a concentrator for half-day centers like us. A concentrator is a student who is here for 2 semesters, and all of these quality measures that the Agency of Education negotiates with us are based on students who are concentrators. So if a student, for example, started in October and dropped out by December, they wouldn't be factored into these measures. Likewise, if a student just joined late in the year, in February, they wouldn't count as a concentrator. So we had 200 technical students and 179 of them were concentrators this year. A Tier 1 IRC is the lower level of IRC. It's not unimportant, but it's not one that would be considered for a pay raise or a promotion or reason for hiring somebody in the industry. So examples of Tier 1s are like the OSHA 10 or CPR or first aid. They're important. Some of them are particularly desirable, like OSHA if you're going into construction, or first aid if you're working with children, but they are usually taught and assessed in the first year of a program and are the baseline IRC. The Tier 2 industry recognized credential is what we're really held accountable for. We are expected to have 50% of students in a class meet the threshold for earning Tier 2 IRCs that are required, and these are the IRCs that are the same industry credentials that adults out in the field are asked to complete, so it's almost akin to college credit. Having these IRCs makes students a lot more employable. Their employer would see their hireability and wouldn't have to conduct this training themselves if a student came with it. So you can see overall 77.1% of our students earned at least one Tier 1, 65.4% at least one Tier 2, 42.5% earned some college credit, and 44.1% participated in work-based learning this year. Any general questions about the overall?
Excuse me.
I think you probably answered this before, so apologies if it's a repeat question, but this is just for tech programs, correct? So pre-tech doesn't factor in?
Pre-tech does not factor
So
in.
in the context of conveying impact, which is, I guess, ultimately what we're discussing, is there a way to also add in the pre-tech component, or is this strictly just responding to the AOE's definition of?
It's responding to the AOE's definition. The teachers who teach pre-tech classes track how the students do on habits of work, and we certainly look at their grades. We look at how many of them go on to technical programs, but none of those classes offer any IRCs. They obviously don't offer college credit, and those are the level, and nor work-based learning, and those are the areas that the AOE defines as a quality program.
Right.
Ian?
The work-based learning, are they required to get a Tier 1 or Tier 2 before they can do WBL, or is it all concomitant?
No, it's that they have, by the instructors say so, they are ready to go out into the field, but usually that's reserved for second-year students.
Okay.
Okay, let's look at the next slide where we can go through program quality measures. Just to explain what program quality measures are, that's a tiny little screenshot of the multi-page spreadsheet that the AOE makes that shows how each program across the state, not just here, can meet program quality. So for example, if you are our forestry natural resources instructor, Aaron Townsend, he must offer something in the right-hand column. He can either offer 2 post-secondary credentials or 3 college credits and 1 credential or 6 college credits. He has a menu by which he can meet program quality, and not only must he offer it, but he must have 50% of his students meet that threshold in order to meet program quality. He happens to exceed those offerings in his program, but this is the matrix by which we are determining and confirming with AOE at the start of the year, yes, we're meeting program quality. This is how we're meeting it, and these are the specific college classes or specific IRCs that we're using to meet it. So on each subsequent slide, I have included a check mark to show which of our programs have fully met their program quality, and I didn't feel like an X or a frowny face would be good if they were only partially there, so that is the symbol for ones where they may have partially met program quality. Next. So ART, on some of them I included a note if I thought that explanation was in order. ART didn't fail to earn IRCs, they're just not a high risk program. You're usually maybe only emotionally damaged with theater, so they don't have to offer first aid or anything like that. So that's why there's no Tier 1 IRCs. Their Tier 2 IRC achievement rate is obviously low. There is a portfolio that is very harshly judged across the state in a multi-day review process, and that is probably why we only had, I think, 2 students earn that IRC. Obviously huge attainment of college credit and work-based learning, so that has a partial because we exceeded the earning in college credit but didn't meet 50% of students earning a Tier 2. and please speak out if you want. I'll try not to take up too much time. I'll move through this, but note if you want me to stop on any of the slides. So advanced manufacturing and engineering offers a wealth of college credits and tier 2 IRCs. Obviously, huge attainment here. This program is still growing in size and ability to move students into the level 2 where they are able to access work-based learning. So I think that that's why that category is a little lower.
How can you have more than 100%?
Yeah, I was just saying.
Good. Yes, because some students who were not concentrators earned that credential, but we can't count them if they are not concentrators. I know it looks kind of funny, doesn't it? So there was a student or 2 students who joined partway through the year, so they weren't concentrators, but they still earned the college credit.
How does weighting factor into that too? Like the N for the number? In that instance, you have 6 concentrators, and so how does weighting factor into the different?
I think there were 8 total students, so that's how it bumped the percentage up.
So Jillian, is that true for every slide here, that there are non-concentrators in these graphs?
Just in terms of if you see something over 100%, then it included students who may have earned that credential, but otherwise not.
Okay.
Auto is the next one. They're high attainment of tier 1s, high attainment of tier 2s. Dual enrollment college credits are not offered in auto.
Jillian, is that something it can change, or is just not out there?
So that one is difficult because the threshold for offering dual enrollment is that the instructor have a college degree. There is usually some sort of waiver if they have an associate's degree, but if they don't have a college degree, they cannot be counted as an adjunct instructor through CCV or VTSU, and so we must meet the program quality in our courses who are taught by field experts without college degrees just through IRCs.
Thanks for that.
Construction tech had a huge gain over last year in terms of tier 2 IRCs, offering both the NCCR credential to students, multiple different NCCR credentials. This is another class that does not offer dual enrollment. Culinary arts, as you probably have heard, was a sort of wingding this year with very low enrollment. We essentially only had 2 students at most throughout the year. Both of them earned the IRC. I worked with the outgoing instructor this year to offer college credit through White Mountains Community College. As you know, we have just hired a new culinary instructor. He does not have a college degree. We are going to be returning to offering a second tier 2 IRC called Pro Start, which he is quite in favor of and thinks it's going to be a good addition to the program. So we will begin that process next year with a new instructor and more enrolled students. Design and illustration also had good success, and as usual in terms of IRCs, they do not offer tier 1s. Diesel has so many students earning so many IRCs, it's quite remarkable. Another class that does not offer dual enrollment. Education and Human Services, I just want to note that they meet their program quality just through college credits, which are above and beyond the minimum in that class. They are not required to offer any tier 2 IRCs, but ULTI offers the Master Teacher, which is a paraeducator certification, so that's not a critique that only a couple students earned that. Those are the only students in the class who want to be paraeducators for whom this was an add-on. Medical professions knocking it out of the park with huge attainment across all of the categories. Likewise with natural resource management. Sustainable agriculture was in a transitional year. Obviously, we had a new instructor this year. The college credit had been through VTSU. VTSU shut down their agriculture program. That forced us to go out of state to SUNY Cobleskill to offer our college credit. We had that relationship established before, but only as an articulation agreement, meaning the students only got the credit if they enrolled in SUNY Cobleskill. Because there's no in-state offering, the Agency of Education now will accept the SUNY Cobleskill as credits. Unfortunately, we, the Hannaford Career Center, have to pay for it out of program budget, which is a sticking point, and the agency is well aware of that from us and the other tech centers who offer agriculture. That's the same for culinary arts, by the way. There's no in-state, which is why we had looked to White Mountains Community College. So we are now offering that credit through SUNY Cobleskill. Before, it was achieved over 2 years. As you may know, in sustainable agriculture, year 1 and year 2 students are mixed into the same class. So we had a combination of students who had already done half the curriculum and a combination of ones who had not at all. So we simply graduated through our year 2 students. That's who achieved the college credit. Next year, we begin the process of everybody doing that college credit in 1 year together. We also changed the IRC to a conservation IRC this year. So looks a little bit low, but we've revamped the entire process and are starting afresh next year. Welding students have continued to do well with earning IRCs, also adding NCCER in addition to their AWS certifications. There's no dual enrollment in this class. A major focus for this program, as well as for Jess, our work-based learning coordinator, is to begin work-based learning placements next year, which we haven't had since the initiation of this program. This year we only had a handful of year 2 students. Those are the students who can do work-based learning. Next year we have enough students to have a dedicated year 1 class and year 2 class. So that's going to be great that year 2 students will be able to have focused attention to participate in work-based learning. And that finally, excuse me, brings us to our post-graduation plans. Each program instructor surveys their students to ask them what they are doing post-graduation. This is a metric for the Agency of Education as well. We're required to follow up with these students in October of the following year to see whether it stuck or not. As you can see, the largest categories are working in, employed in a related industry to the one that they took a class in here, and going on to post-secondary education in a related field.
Except for the one in pink.
There's one student who was not seeking employment, but had the slice was so small it didn't even put a number up. We wish them well.
Well.
Maybe they're
Video games and mom.
Yes, maybe they inherited some money. So
still to be decided.
yeah, that's right. I think that's a nicer way of it.
Question. Steve has a question.
Well, I was just gonna comment that it's too bad that the post-secondary group is very unhappy with their situation. They're unelated.
Oh, I say this English teacher is duly chastised for her typo.
Julian, I have a question.
Yes.
Like, this seems so complicated, and I've been around for about 5 years. Like, is this new, or is this just we're paying more attention?
This should have been always done, and now it's being done.
So similar to the gratitude and I think respect that we give Austin and David for cleaning up our financial situation. Jillian has brought us into the modern age with data and all of our accountability measures, and just our ability to know how our students are doing on each and every one of these measures that we are assessed on. So our quality as a center these are the things that determine that. And when I arrived here, I could not put my finger on any piece of data which gave me this information, nor was it housed or stored in any way that we could use it or find it in many cases. Jillian stepped into a similar situation to the business office in the accountability assessment data realm and has worked tirelessly over the last 2 years to figure it all out, understand it all, find all the data, assemble all the data, and then put all kinds of processes and systems into place now so that we're collecting the data in real time from our instructors as these things happen. And it's been a huge undertaking and just maddening hair pulling out, similar to what Austin and David were doing, pulling out their hair. So again, you have certainly put your finger on the problem and the solution. So.
Yes, thank you, Julie.
Any last questions on?
Yes, I'd like you to talk about some other things that you do on a regular basis that we've had a brief conversation with, the transformation for record keeping and things like that.
In terms of the
Your
the
job
Power School.
responsibility at Power School, thank you.
Okay, I believe Nicole had that slotted for somewhere else, so do you wanna talk about it now? Along those lines, I don't know if this is the first people are learning of this, we have made the decision to switch student information systems to Power School from Jump Rope. We have been dabbling with this idea for a number of reasons. One, because Jump Rope, I think, was primarily adopted because it offers proficiency-based grading, which was not available on all platforms when that became a thing in Vermont. It doesn't do a lot of other things well, such as keep information or create transcripts. A few other things have happened since then. One, the majority of state moving toward Power School, the suggestion from the higher ups in the AOE that should the state be consolidated, that will be adopted statewide, so it would behoove us to get ahead of that ball. And Nicole's insight that the best way to advocate for our students getting records was to produce them ourselves, and you can't do that with Jump Rope, but we are setting up our Power School SIS in a way that students embedded credits, so their science, their math that they earn, as well as the technical class, their IRCs, and the full names of the college credits will be able to be produced on those transcripts. Right now, if a student from for Gens takes a class, all we can do is tell their registrar what happened, and what actually ultimately comes out on their transcript may be inaccurate or missing or an incomplete picture, and that impacts students who are applying to college and for other reasons. So I think that's why we made the ultimate decision, besides the fact that it's easier to keep accountability in a more robust system. So we are beginning to set that up. David is our project lead in-house. Tracy Cross-Baker, our counselor, Dan Callahan, our IT person, and I are sort of the main implementers, and we are working on a weekly basis with our Power School project manager and implementation person, and we're working on it. It's going to be ready for August.
And our new finance associate Sue is helping out too. She has some extensive systems background.
Sue has extensive experience with this, way more than any of us, and is taking the lead on getting the old data and the incoming students' data into the most colorful, extensive spreadsheets you've seen in your life, to upload them into Power School, so we have all of this information on our students.
Good.
Thank you all.
So you don't have to go look at this and type it in here and look at this.
We were afraid for a few scary weeks there, but it seems like we will be able to do it in batch.
Cool.
Jillian and I had a brief conversation about it, and I said, you know what, there's more people that need to know what you're doing in the group. Thank you for explaining everybody else's role. I think sometimes when it comes to Berlin, we don't hear a lot of that for whatever reason, especially what some of your responsibilities are. So
It's
thank you
behind the
very
scenes
much
stuff, for sure.
an easy to follow report. I think, that's my own personal opinion, but it sounds like everybody gets what you're talking about. So thank you very much for all your work.
Thank you.
Do we need a motion to accept this?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. And a second.
I'll second.
All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Hearing none, thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a good day.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you.
State board rules in the Perkins, 16 PSA 1543C.
So by way of remembering, in addition to the board governance goals that we report on, since we are a standalone district, we do not have a RAB because we are a standalone district with a school board. We still have to do all of the tasks required of a regional advisory board, otherwise called a RAB. So there are a number of these board rules that we have to report on annually. This is number 6 of 10. And this one is just, we have to report that we are in fact serving all of the districts in our service region. And in fact, we're serving more. So you can see we have the enrollment numbers from Virgins, Mount A, Middlebury, also from Otter Valley, and other. And I will be interested to see, given our massive efforts of recruitment to our north or to our south, if these numbers the other column may be different next year. We don't know yet. But you can see that we do pick up, at least for the 25-26 year, we picked up 17 students from outside of so Otter Valley is technically outside of our service region and other is outside of our service region.
Any idea about homeschooling group?
Homeschooling, I don't have that information specifically because the way that they're reported is still by homeschool, but we can pull that information should the board be interested, right? And our homeschool students are some of our most successful and incredible students. You often see them getting students of the semester.
Any questions? I need a motion to accept that. Conversation. So moved. Second?
Second.
Bill? Thank you. All those in favor, please raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Thank you. Okay, number 4, we already did that one. And number 5, donation of steel from Hazelette.
Dave, Judd, you want to talk about this one?
Sure, this is sort of a multi-pronged note because Bill had a big role in it too. He, as far as I know, did the original organization of this donation with Dan Gleason, who works up at a facility called Hazelette Strip Casting in Colchester, right on Mounts Bay. State-of-the-art facility, does any number of things that you can or can't imagine with metal. Bill arranged with Dan to donate a bunch of steel that will be useful for Dan Ahrensmeyer's class and for the welding program, I'm assuming. And then I went up and picked it up with one of my employer's trucks and trailers and brought it down and delivered it. And in the process up there at Hazelette, this guy, Dan Gleason, is super enthusiastic about education, super enthusiastic about the career centers, and was very excited to hear that we have a welding program as well as our advanced manufacturing, because he, as an industry guy, looks at it as these are potentially my future welders in-house, and these are people who will be welding on site or doing something, and they'll need us to cut metal and shape things for them. So to that end, he is, in just about every way possible, was asking or imploring me to communicate that he wants to donate more and more and more steel. Just ask. Not just us, any education. So if any of you are on other boards where their cutoffs, their waste can be useful, it's not like scraps in a barrel. It's just like these really nice sheets of very specific, I don't know, 3/16 metal or something. Could not have been nicer to work with. So anybody who's part of an educational nonprofit, or you hear of one that is looking for this, they get pennies on the dollar for recycling it, and they have to pay all the trucking and everything, so they would much rather donate it to educational facilities, and you can get the write-off. So yeah, they donate thousands of dollars worth of steel, and they would love to donate thousands of dollars more. Yeah.
So if I can add to that, the funny thing was I was up there doing something different for work, and talking with one of the other guys in the plant, and he goes, "You gotta meet Dan Gleason." So I introduced myself, and he goes, "I'm on your advisory board." I said, "What?" So he's actually on the advisory board, I think, for the welding program. I don't know. But he actually comes from the world of automation. He does some really cool things. Hazelette is a 100-plus-year-old company that it's a strip casting. So they make rolled steel, rolled copper, aluminum, and tin. They make the machines that get shipped around the world. And they are always innovating parts, so it's an incredible place. He's looking for interns, and I have since introduced him to a bunch of people at UVM. But the cool thing about Judd going up is Judd showed up and he couldn't have been happier because Judd pulled into the yard with a 20-ton trailer. And he'd already asked, he said, "Can you load it on my 20-ton trailer?" And they're like, "Oh, thank God, it's not somebody with a half-ton pickup truck, and we got to worry about him falling out of the truck." And that's what he was really happy about. It's like, how can we keep this going? So we'll take a look at it. We understand that taking too much stuff in is a problem, and there's some other folks in the state who would actually like some stuff, and I'm going to reach out to them. But thank you very much for doing that. And who is your boss? Because he actually contributed the truck and the trailer.
Yeah, so like an outfit called White Falcon Solutions. They're just north of Virgins in Ferrisburg, and we do excavation and masonry and stuff. And so they were willing to let me use the truck for that. So they'll also be, maybe at a future meeting, they'll send one of these so that they can also get the write-off and all of that, because they donated all of the trucking.
Yeah, I'm happy to write them a letter. If you want to chat with me, we can get them a letter out.
Terrific.
Yep.
That would be great. Thank you.
One more thing on Dan Gleason. He is also a speaker, a motivational speaker, and sort of his side hustle thing. I think he said he doesn't charge for it. He would love to come down and also talk to the students. And so if we want to reach out to him for any of those things, he's just a really motivated guy.
He's into robotics. Before he was there, he and his brother had an automation shop, and they used to process all the pieces for a couple game boards. They automated, they do 12, 16 inches at a time for Scrabble. And they do all the pieces, and he's very much a wizard, and he's very good with training kids, and he's always looking for interns. So he's very excited about what we're doing.
Any questions?
Thank you to Hazel.
Yeah.
My son just went on a field trip over there with his class from American Welding Institute. They were pretty impressed, to say the least.
Awesome facility. It's the cleanest shop I've ever been in.
So we need a motion to accept this donation.
So moved.
And a second? Second. Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye. Raise your hand.
Aye.
Any in opposition? Seeing none, motion carries. So number 6, appointing representative to the Champlain Valley South CESA H955 requires within 30 days of being signed, each member of supervisory union, in this case the Patricia Hannaford Technical School District, must appoint a representative to serve on this board. Dr. Tavish recommends that the board appoint her to represent our district in that capacity. Any questions about that? What is the purpose of that group?
That was my question.
Good question. So you have two documents here. One says Union School District Exploration and Foundation Formation. The other says Cooperative Educational Service Areas. We're not going to go into great depth on these tonight because we're going to have a lot of conversation in the fall about these two things which are going on. As a result of H955, there's really two pieces which are going on. One is governance that's going on, and one is administration that's going on. So the governance piece is essentially our board will appoint somebody to go meet with the other districts in our group, and our group is group 1. which is listed on here, which is the usual suspects in our area, Addison Central, Addison Northwest, Lincoln, and Mount Abe. And we will also be, we don't get a vote, but we get to be at the table, so that's an improvement of where we started. So you'll send one of our board members will go to this group of board members who will start talking about whether or not we want to merge in group one, right? So that will be a whole process that happens starting in September. You can see the timeline, which is on which starts on page 9 and goes to page 10. It starts right as we get into the fall, and then it's a pretty quick timeline about whether or not this group of board members decides that we should or essentially their task is to decide not if we're gonna merge, but should we or should we not pursue merging, right? And then there's a whole timeline and group of activities that goes with that. So somebody from our board, somebody from Addison Northwest, somebody from each of the in our region boards will come together, and that small group will determine should that group pursue to merge in whole, in part, kick somebody out, bring somebody in, whatever, right? So that's a process that will happen. So that's the governance process. Separate but related is the administration process, which is the one that says cooperative educational districts at the top. This process is, do the districts around us, and in this case, our group is similar but slightly different. It includes a few other school districts, but do the districts in our area, we are called the North Champlain Valley South CESA in this one. So it's the usual Addison County people plus a few more. So this is, do we want, as this group of districts, to share services? So we will be talking about forming what's called a cooperative education service district and whether or not that would benefit our district by sharing services with others. For example, some of the services they list out here are special education services or business office services or maybe transportation services, things like that. So the administrative group will be deciding, do we want to get band together and have some capacity which may cost less to do certain functions. And so that also has a timeline, which you can see on the pages. I think it starts also right away, and September 1st is when they are hiring regional consultants to help these groups with these things. And so there'll be the sort of superintendents and businessy types that are going to be talking about the CESA work, about shared services. But the governance piece, the board piece, is really, do we want to actually merge and become some smaller number of school districts, essentially. So there will be a lot going on in the fall. And for the administrative, I'm asking, this first piece is the administrative piece, and to represent our district, I'm asking that the board appoint me to do the CESA work. There will be another ask later on where I ask the board to choose amongst yourself who would like to represent us in the merger conversation.
Who's driving all of this?
This was all the legislation that came out of H955.
Liz?
I think the CESA is kind of neat because it includes CVU and Mansfield.
Right. Yeah, and I was kind of hoping that would be part of the merger.
Right.
But yes.
So thank you for doing that. I feel like that's going to be an enormous amount of work figuring out what would be helpful for shared services and not, especially in this unique situation.
Right.
I mean, is CVU going to have technical services that somehow would be helpful? I don't know, but it seems interesting. Technical district with MAUSD, for instance. I don't know how much overlap there is in all the different contracts you have with all your employees. I just, right, somebody that's used to working here at a certain wage isn't necessarily going to work at Mount A for a certain wage. So it's just interesting that they'll have an articles of agreement, right? We'll pay in some amount And I just don't know, it just seems really complicated combining those two types of districts with maybe CVU, because they have I don't know what Mount Mansfield has for technical education, but I don't know. So it just seems like a huge task, so.
Right, both things will be extraordinarily interesting to see how they all pan out. I have no idea what will happen.
It's gonna be a huge effort. I went up to Harwood this weekend because my granddaughter had a performance up there. And I actually drove from Hancock, and it's probably an hour and 15 minutes. But like the whole Mad River Valley, so much of it now is the educational desert. But you gotta figure out where these kids can go and what they can do. Because there are people over there now who are looking at, actually, there's a very good independent school in Roxbury now, and they're actually looking at taking their kids out of school and going there instead, because they have no other options that they really like. So it's gonna be interesting.
On a secondary note, we have, as board members, for almost a year and a half now, trying to meet regularly, whether it's the Superintendent's group, Lincoln, Mount Abe, obviously this board, and we're going to continue to do that because it's a different voice. Obviously, we're going to share information with whomever represents this group, because I think that's an important driver. And we can speak a little more informally, I think, other than having to be in the presence of a superintendent or the rest of the board. Comments have been really, really good. Lincoln has very different interests, and it's good for them to hear, and funding sources and things like that they're unaware of. And we all know we get funded different than everybody else, but once they hear that, I think it really helps them understand how things work over here. And having that opportunity, I will update you as needed with them. Steve?
Question: were these districts and some of these combinations of districts designed to have a technical centre in each one?
Sure, I mean, I think, yeah, I think there was methodology, so the combination of districts was, I mean, a lot of this legislation happened behind closed doors. There wasn't a lot of transparency. It came out as a full-blown idea. I think they chose where they felt that it would be easier to combine for the merger processes. I think it's interesting that the CESA groups are different than the merger groups. I also think it's interesting that the CESA groups closely mirror the original idea of 5 school districts. So I'm interested to see how that all plays out. There's also a lot of language with the CESA cooperative groups about how you can kick out people or districts and how you can invite districts in. It's going to be a very interesting journey, right?
So I need a motion to accept number 6 as written. It doesn't appear to have any changes per recommendation of the board appointing Dr. McTavish to represent the district in our capacity. Second? Second. All those in favor, raise your hand or say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you. Line of credit.
That one's me again. So this is a bit of housekeeping in the business office. We do this once a year. Each fiscal year we have to take out a line of credit with our bank to float operating costs when we are cash hungry, and that's usually July, August into September. And the age-old conversation of when the ed fund payments kick in, unfortunately, we need to take a line out to do that. There is some analysis that is baked into this, and as we remember last fall, we underestimated how much we needed, so we sort of had to come back and do a revision on that. This year with a bit more accurate financials, we feel a lot more confident in this number. It's actually a slight reduction. It's $500,000 less than what we asked for fiscal year '26. But basically, we're just asking for permission to borrow in anticipation of our ed fund payments coming in the fall and winter. And it's to the tune of $2,225,000. I'm happy to entertain questions about this process. Yeah.
So this is instead of having 1.5 million going into the year in our
Correct.
reserves.
Last
we're
year-
actually 200 million, total 2 million. in
Yep,
arrears.
so fiscal year '26, we borrowed 1.7 million, so we, no matter what, we would have been out of luck. And then part of this number, it factors in a 5% contingency of our budget, so there's a bit of a buffer, just in case we do run into unexpected cash needs. If the roof blew off with a tornado, or who knows what, there's a bit of an emergency rainy day cushion baked into that number, in addition to a hard analysis of what our actual cash flow needs are, and applying percentage increases to account for a budget.
Well, it's testament to you and Dave's work that we actually know what this number is instead of previous years when we just guessed.
Yeah, I have, well, knock on wood, but I feel pretty confident about this number, and it should float us until the fall and December when cash comes in pretty quickly.
Right. Any other questions?
I move that we approve this line of credit.
Second.
Did you put the amount in there?
The line of credit of $2,225,000.
Second. Steve, okay. All those in favor, please raise your hand or say aye.
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 Anybody opposed?
So the last piece on this, Christina is gonna sign this tonight, and then Jane Beck first thing tomorrow, she's our treasurer, she'll sign the resolution. Once the bank receives it, our banker Chris Lapierre will send out emails to all of us via DocuSign, so please watch out to your school emails. I think we need a board majority to finalize the actual line of credit documents with the bank, and we'll need everyone to participate in that.
So that will be next week.
I think tomorrow, if not early next week, you'll see emails from the National Bank of Middlebury asking you to sign the actual bank documents. So that'll come through as a DocuSign document, it's not spam.
Okay.
And on that note, for the summer, I'm not sure how many people have signed up yet, but as board members,
Let's check.
it's really important to get on the list if you possibly can to review bills and statements and so on. If we can do that relatively soon. I know people are trying to go away and so on. So it's helpful.
I know that they're for 5 o'clock, like 3 to 5. And so I was wondering though, like if we have a Thursday, well, not during the summer, but I guess never mind. During the school year, if it's on a Thursday, do the Thursdays ever align with the Thursdays we're already here for either committee or board meetings?
For half the year they do, and then for half the year they don't, just based on our bi-weekly payroll cadence. So right now we're sort of out of cycle, but within a few months it'll flip back to being in cycle. But we do need one person. 2 weeks from yesterday is when our next signing is, and Bill, we need someone to join Bill to help us out. I'll resend the link just as a reminder to sign up for the year, but for now we're 1 man short. Oh,
Not anymore.
Laura, thank you.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you, Laura.
All right. Anything else you want to add to that? Is that all you need people for?
Most of the year is pretty blank, so I'll send out another reminder, and thanks in advance.
And I'll say it again, it's a good idea to take a look at where things are going. And it breaks out all the credit cards, it breaks out all the different accounts, what department they're going to, what things are being used for. And it really will give you an idea of what we're doing and how little we actually have control of. I don't mean that in a bad way, but.
Reports from the board, the superintendent's report, which you will continue to talk.
So just reminding the board that during the summer, we have reduced hours. Our summer hours are generally 8 to 3, Monday through Friday. So the door will be generally manned during those hours. Oftentimes, there are many of us around outside of those hours, but our public-facing hours are 8 to 3. We will, internally, we have somebody assigned to be the manager on duty because most of us are taking vacations during this time. The business office is often here during the summer because it's their busiest time, and also they can work in quiet and not be interrupted all the time. So Austin and David will often be the manager on duty during the summer hours. Wendy is on vacation now. Jillian is about to go on vacation. I'm going to be gone from next Tuesday to June 3rd, 29th, and then again from July 15th through the end of July. So I'll have a weekish and then a 2-weekish time when I'm gone. But David and Austin will definitely be here during those times, and Wendy and Jillian will also be in and out as people are using vacation during that time. Melissa Sullivan works the whole summer, and Shannon, when she gets back from her wedding, will also be working for the summer. Jillian sort of went down the line about the Power School transition that we are having, and we are working very hard to have that up and running for teachers. We had a big faculty meeting and discussed all the pros and cons, and the teachers were understanding of all the reasons we needed to go to Power School, and also understand that it may not be perfect on day one. As we always do, we will get through it. This is a truncated timeline for this sort of a turnover, but it became pretty obvious. The thing which really caused us to we were sort of on the straddling the like, should we, shouldn't we? But then AOE, Erin Davis from AOE actually came for a different purpose to the center, where I was explaining to her the impact that the proposed graduation requirements would have on career technical education. And as part of that exercise, we were actually pulling transcripts of students that were going to our 3 main schools. So transcripts from Mount Abe, transcripts from Virgins, and print transcripts for Middlebury. And throughout that exercise, it became so obvious, the imperative, because our credits, the embedded credits and college credits, are transcribed wildly differently across the 3 districts, so that a student may or may not be able to show that they have an embedded credit, may or may not be able to show that they have a college credit, may or may not be able to show that they actually earned 3 credits in their CTE class, just by the rules and regulations that each of those districts use, which are very different. So it became very obvious that to protect students, so that students could have a clear record of what they earned here, we needed to be able to produce that for them. We can't control how the sending schools transcript anything, but we can provide a transcript to a student and a family so that they have it when they're applying for jobs or colleges or whatever that they needed for scholarships. So that was really the imperative that caused us to make the leap, so that for this next year's graduating seniors, they will have a transcript to walk out the door with. I'm also happy to report we have hired 2 of our students to, Haley Chase will be our farm manager, who she takes care of the animals and the farm up at North Campus across the summer. And for the very first time, we've hired one of our students, a welding student, who has become so proficient in welding that he's actually going to help Dylan make the new welding boots. So we have hired Adrian Rhodes, who came into the business office with his mom, who took pictures because it was his first job. It was very exciting. So he will be working with Dylan over the summer to create the new welding lab spaces. So those are all very exciting things.
Any questions? Seeing none. Thank you, Nicole. Committee reports. I don't know if anybody wants to speak in a particular committee. Obviously, facilities changed their time for 8:20.
So we just had a meeting just prior to this meeting.
And I apologize for not being there.
All right, we survived without you.
Thank you.
One of the things that we did discuss at our facilities meeting was the status of the North Campus renovations or updates. they seem to be going well. David was saying they're off to a start, you know, it's a little bit slow to get going, and then they'll be going. The roof is, everything's on schedule though, but you may recall at our last board meeting, we were talking about an electric bus that there was a really good deal on an electric bus from another district that it wasn't a good fit for. Bus turned out to be kind of a bummer. Dave, if you want to add anything to this, feel free to jump in. But essentially, David and Alan went up to get the bus, and the battery is not sufficient, and it didn't even make it all the way back to this school. They had to stop in Virgins and charge it. It's been sitting for a couple of years. Things are not working correctly. There are a couple of lights on in the dash. So if you recall from a month ago, there was a contingency plan. Should this bus not actually live up to our needs, then we have the option to send it back to this district. And as far as I know, that is the plan.
Yeah, it's disappointing, but it's best to just cut it and go. I'm going to send the email out to John Tague, the superintendent of that district, in a few minutes. And the first word is unfortunately. So they're not going to be happy. They're in a bad situation, I think, with these buses, but I think it's best for us not to do it. I think the issue is that we still have a bus issue that we're going to have to solve over the next year.
One of the other things that David mentioned is that it was used, it was driven by one of our instructors, and he said basically, I can't get this into the places I need to take it.
Yeah, Aaron, when he got the bus and he drove it around a little bit, he realized like getting that big bus into the sugar house and into the wood lot, and then he's like, hey, sometimes we go to the river and do water testing and this and that and the other. And so for that reason also, that was just another one of the reasons that we decided this is not the best fit for us.
And it helped you with your letter.
Yes.
Thank you for doing all that.
Sell that bus if it wasn't properly working. Like, that's kind of crazy.
Well, I'm not sure they are going to be able to sell this bus. So they have two of them.
Yeah.
Any other committee reports like to share with us?
Kim, just on a note that this will be the year that we negotiate again with teachers. So the board will need to think about who wants to be on the negotiation committee. The negotiation committee is very time consuming and needs long hours at night to sell it, to make it really sound exciting. But it is a critical role because it largely determines our next year budget.
What I understand, teachers have not notified us yet.
They haven't, they will, I'm sure they will probably notify us right when we get back. They, our union representative is changing again. Eric did his time and is turning the baton over to someone else, but that has not been identified yet. So I assume when they figure out who's gonna be the leader, then they will also give us the demand department.
When is the negotiation supposed to be done?
The contract concludes at the end of next school year, correct, Aston?
Yes. And are you asking when we should have this negotiation process finalized, or?
Yes.
I mean, ideally before budgets are finalized, because we get into a cat and mouse game if we're bleeding the negotiation process and we have to finalize the budget. That can get
July 1st, you just roll it over from the previous year if they haven't decided.
Yeah, in which we had to do that this fiscal year with the staff union because we didn't reach an agreement last year. So it does happen. It's not ideal, but they're worse crime.
Right, the timeline is a little bit problematic because we start bargaining, like, let's say September, and unless we have it completed by December, which is unlikely, then we have to continue bargaining after we've already passed a budget.
And sort of shown our cards.
Okay.
And the only addition to that is probably from the previous negotiation group to include legal representation with us, similar to what the NEA already does. And I think when you think about that and decide to come in and help with the negotiation, It will help in regards to anxiety, I guess. And a learning process, like anything, because it is a little bit different than other groups that I personally have negotiated with. But at the same time, it's a learning process, and it isn't a bad thing if you know what you're doing, but it's never expected when you come on as a new person that you know everything. You want to add to that?
Yeah, just, I think I've said this before, but just at risk of repeating myself, anybody who is interested in doing it, I think it would be great to meet probably as like even a pre-meeting. I think understanding the context of what's in the contract and why we might want certain things added or removed and why they might, and I think having a pre-meeting would help just make some of those things a little less stressful, a little more clear, because it's just a whole lot to take in all at once, and to have sort of your first meeting be the first time you're discussing it adds to that.
No.
So my question is, I'm assuming the two of you are planning on doing it
Hasn't been decided yet.
as part of the team.
I guess.
And, but can we have a meeting with interested parties and with the two of you to kind of sit down and, you know, kind of discuss this, not too many people in there that it's actually a real meeting, but so that we can sit down and understand it, understand the amount of time, the things we have to go through. Because I have to resell it at home.
The time will vary. VSBA also has some materials that you can use online in regards to what a typical negotiation looks like. And it's a very helpful tool. I've done it every couple of times just to refresh myself.
Can you just remind us who is on the committee now? It's the two of you and Bill, or is it?
Not yet.
There is no committee.
Just us two right
Just
now.
the two of you. Okay. And you can have as many as 4 or 5?
We traditionally have 3. And
Three.
maybe
Trying to
alternate.
match whatever the other side is.
Yeah, if they come in, it's not a big, large group.
Yeah.
You know, like it is
Okay.
next door or whatever. So yeah,
Yeah.
we traditionally try to do that even with the staff negotiations also. Anyway, part of it is, you know, setting ground rules and all those things we can talk about during that time.
Okay.
Or just that's the same size as across the road too, by the way. 3 people generally.
Yeah, that's pretty traditional from what I've seen, but some I've also seen more. Years ago, it would be like a circus. I mean, it was just, and then they drop off and they send somebody new in halfway through the process. So those are the things that are really, really important, is when you make that commitment to do it. And if you can't be involved on a regular basis, it makes it tough for everybody else who's still sitting there. And just keep that in mind when you do make that commitment. Time-wise, it varies. Really depends what's offered at the table and not. And as Judd has alluded to, there's some things that, you know, may come up as these mergers take place and things like that are going to change things dramatically. As an example, the current healthcare package for the teachers, we're going to try and start negotiations again in April. But I mean, that's been very quiet. And with the governor voting down what he wanted to vote down yesterday, that will also change things. But that seems to be a subject they don't want to talk about just yet. Nobody wants to talk about it for obvious reasons. But anyway, and that's done as a universal agreement. And I don't see the teachers going that way, but they might. You never know. It might be a statewide contract, which would be very interesting. But anyway, I think it's part of a conversation that's just beginning to happen at the legislative level. But anyway, anything else you want to add to negotiations? Anything else on the other committees? Policy committee is coming up next for discussion. Number 1, MALT.
So we have traditionally had a relationship with the Middlebury Area Land Trust, MALT. That's been more of a handshake sort of agreement. Aaron and his group of students work extensively with this group to do all kinds of activities, trails and signage and all kinds of things. The Middlebury Area Land Trust has a new executive director who has an interest in formalizing this through a MOU. And so we have worked back and forth with Kevin Fox to produce this MOU. which essentially just bullets out the agreement that we already have so that it's formalized. It also has a no fault clause that if either party doesn't want to do this agreement anymore, we can walk away. I don't anticipate that being the case. We've been good partners for a very long time. But before the other piece is that once we do this, once we formalize this, Kevin has an interest in publicizing this. So I just wanted to ensure that the board knew that that was going to happen, that we have in fact formalized this relationship that we've had for a long time, and that it's likely you'll see some sort of press release or other activity to celebrate. So that's always good news too. Any publicity is good publicity for us in this area.
Is there any change in what they're asking us to do? Anything that would change liability or?
No, it talks about who's in charge of what and whose problem what is if it happens. And then who coordinates what. And I think part of his interest might have been to ensure that we were clear that if a student was hurt, it was on us. So I respect that too.
I just was wondering, Nicole, has our lawyer looked at this and visited?
We have not, we did not share this with our lawyer because it's not a binding agreement. It's a non-binding agreement. We could do that, should the board choose for us to do that. I'm happy to do that.
Any thoughts?
I think it's necessary. I mean, typically I think
That's
some of these
to do with
things,
liability.
yeah, get reviewed, but I mean.
I think from an insurance perspective, if our students are on the property, they're covered if they get hurt no matter where they are, whether it's there or in a different state or in Burlington. So from a risk management perspective, there's no difference. And as Nicole was mentioning, this has been a long-standing. We're functionally doing the same things, and so this is more just grounding it in writing. And as Nicole said, there's no binding terms to this, so we're not hampered from acting or moving the way that we currently do.
Okay, if you guys feel good about that, then
You okay with that?
I guess.
So yeah, that's that.
Thank you. So that's a discussion. Do you need, it's not in the book.
No, I just wanted the board to be apprised in
Aware of
case
it.
you saw something and you were like, how did I not know that?
Yeah. Where did that come? Number 2 is the first read for F3 Fire and Emergency Preparedness.
I would defer to anybody in the room. I did want to say something about the MOU. Is MALT planning in that MOU to give up their nuclear weapons?
No.
And open the strait. They're gonna open up the strait.
Steve is sassy tonight.
On vacation.
But they're giving us $300 billion.
The policies that you have in front of you are all first reads. I don't have the paper in front of me, so I can't tell you who is responsible for which of the policies. But it is a first read, so what that means is this is an opportunity for you to take a look at those, and we'll vote on them in August. Just as a side note, other than a couple of policies that are kind of hanging out there right now, this should update the policy roster. So this tranche is going to be the last bit of updating for the deadline of June of 26 for the review of all policies. So just kind of ties up the work that we've been trying to accomplish this year. So have a read over those. The people that are in the room with you there, Dan, Christina, Laura, they can speak to the individual policies if you have any questions on them, but probably a good idea to just read them over and bring any questions to the next one, which is going to be the second read, which will be in August. So
thank you. Christina?
I will speak to my policies, you guys, okay? I apologize for not giving you a red line version of policy F3. There's only one change to that policy, and that is in number 6, where they've added to the paragraph on or by July 2024. And all hazard emergency operations plan is adopted and maintained for each school site. This is the new part, that is at least as comprehensive as the template maintained by the Vermont School Safety Center. That was the only change to that policy. So I just wanted to point that out.
Thank you.
My other two policies were E1 and F4, and there are no changes to these policies. So they are as they were previously adopted, so just FYI.
Thank you.
Yeah, on those.
And the mascot policy has not changed at all. No.
Number 6, F2. Any comments regarding D4, Title I comparability?
Yeah, that's one of the, this is one of the ones that are up in the air. So there's about 4 or 5 policies out there that don't really apply to us.
Okay.
And the response from VSBA was less than helpful. They basically said, if they don't apply to you, just adopt them anyway because they're required. And it does expose us a little bit because if a parent comes in and says, why aren't you doing this policy? And it's like, well, we don't provide special education services. The sending schools do that. And then they could respond and say, you have a policy that says that you'll do this. So that's the kind of thing that we're still trying to get some clear direction from both VSBA and the AOE, because there are some most of these, like D4, say on them either from the VSBA or the Agency of Education that they are required policies. Well, they're required policies, but they shouldn't be required of us because we're not a Title I school. We don't graduate kids. We don't grant diplomas. So they're required policies to say when you grant a diploma X, Y, Z, and we don't do that, so it doesn't really apply to us. So the jury is still out as to whether we're going to keep those. The suggestion that we adopt the ones that we don't really even think that we need but are required. I'm a little uncomfortable with that, but it seems to be a stopgap measure, and D4 is one of those policies. So that's all I can really say about that. We have D4 on the books. It has not changed from the VSBA's promulgation of it earlier, but it's one of those ones that I have a question about. Do we really need to have this on the books? But more later, I guess, is the response to that.
Christina?
I'm just going to add a piece based on our meeting and the minutes that we took about D4. It's basically all of what Steve said, but in the end, we felt like we needed to put it forward, and we can always rescind it. And there was a question about asking Austin if we don't receive Title I funds at all. Correct?
No, because we're not applicable.
Yeah, so just note that too. But,
Liz?
Yeah.
Liz?
Isn't the responsibility on the LEA of the sending district?
For Title I and for special education. Yes.
Right, so maybe there's a way we could reference in there that
Make it
all of our students are from sending districts and therefore that responsibility lies where they come
Transfer
from.
that required, yeah, to the.
It's tricky to change language in a policy without it getting vetted by a lawyer.
By a lawyer,
yes.
Somehow to reference that.
So.
Maybe,
And
I don't know.
The question that we had about the Title I stuff is that we don't receive Title I funds, but is there any way we could be held responsible for what the sending schools do? Is there any kind of pass-through? Do they pass through Title I funds to us? For an example, and I know that this isn't really the case, if they use Title I funds to fund the bus that transports students here, then are we really receiving Title I funds? So an example like that, and that's why I think we need a little more clarity about whether we're responsible for Title I policies or not.
Questions, comments? So first reading, take a look, and you know who to contact if you have some suggestions. Anything else from your group that you want to add? Thank you very much for your time, because I know sometimes it can be rather consuming. Anyway, next, commentary on any topic from the public. Anything we haven't addressed you'd like to know?
I had a quick question. In the last week, I was in different places with my backpack, and I had two different people approach me. One of whom graduated from high school here in '97, and one of his best friends was an ART and went off and worked for Disney Worldwide. And I'm trying to track the guy down to find out how we put him in touch with, who should we put him in touch with here? Because
To do
aren't we
the
collecting
alumni?
information for alumni?
Yeah, myself.
Okay,
That'd be great.
cool.
A board reflection.
Go, Jen.
Look at him.
Come on, Jed.
Same thing every time. It's the same thing every time.
You're getting yours much harder.
We're a little behind, but not terribly. As usual, robust discussion. Thank you to Jillian and you guys for being so prepared with your presentations and all the work you've done. That's an amazing amount of work. Yeah, no, just a great board to be part of. Thank you all for being here.
The next
Oh,
meeting.
wait, Dan has a addition
I
as well.
would like to suggest that the audit report slides be readable. I couldn't read a single one of those slides.
Did you have surgery on your eyes?
No.
Maybe next
You're
time.
saying Samantha's presentation?
Dark, yeah.
I've asked her to
Darker
send
fonts, larger, darker fonts, or
Maybe next time they can send the link.
link and we
can
can.
do it.
link.
Yeah.
I've asked for a copy and also
I mean,
Thank you.
I don't understand that stuff, and I understand less than I did.
There'll be a test after you read those.
Yeah.
Chrissy has a question online.
Yeah, not really a question, just a thank you. You know, this has been my first year sitting on any sort of formal board, and you guys have just been so gracious and welcoming. And just the amount of information that was given today really is just incredible. And I just wanted to thank you. That's my only reflection.
Thank you. Anything else? Any other reflections? We need an executive session.
Would you invite me?
Okay.
Before you
Linda.
get to that, I noticed a date is incorrect on the meeting schedule. Oh. It's minor.
Yeah.
It says that we're gonna meet September 10th of 27. Saying policy committee.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, I just, it's a habit. Thank you. Sorry.
Gonna give you a beeper, Linda, though, you know, so when you're
I know.
behind the old, you know,
It's details
truck
like
that you
that.
phoned in.
We were unelated.
I love that.
They're
Yeah.
important.
Yeah.
Leave it to him.
Father,
Details.
So,
Hey, Linda?
need a motion for executive session?
This is the dual thing, right?
Well, I believe it has to be read.
Wanna read it?
I'm not doing it.
I move that we go into executive session pertaining to 1 VSA 313A1, which has topics requiring a specific finding that premature general public knowledge would clearly place the public body or person involved at a substantial disadvantage. Labor relations, such as labor relations agreements with employees, pending or probable civil litigation or prosecution if the public body is or may be a party.
Second,
Seconds.
all those in favor? Thank you.
Is that your finding motion?
Oh geez. I only have one written here
Yes,
today.
the answer is yes.
So now you need a motion to go into.
Okay, so then,
It's bothersome.
We appreciate you keeping us
This is
honest.
why we can't survive without
All
Linda.
right. Wasn't there two?
okay, so then, we need a second one. I move that we go, I'll just read number 2 here.
You're right.
Read one. Do you know which one of these?
It's on the agenda.
Read it and
Just
then read
It's on the
it.
bottom of the
I
agenda.
didn't see it on my agenda.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm looking at K. I read everything that's on mine. Pending or probable.
You had the whole thing.
I mean, technically you did the same, it's the same thing.
It is?
But you should have said in the first one, fine, because I'm finding that it will cause a disruption.
Okay. I'm still confused, I will be every single time.
This is why I didn't read it.
You're not alone.
I'm fine.
Yes,
If
you're
you wanna
right.
just
Okay.
make the
Printing
motion
it out
to
right
the
now.
executive, I will copy and paste.
Okay, I would
Thank you,
move that
Linda.
we go into executive session for all of Linda's reasons. No, I mean,
And I will second that.
and since Kim isn't here, Steve wants to, or just all in favor?
I
Right.